appraisal. To help us dissect that is Dr. Daphne Chibanda, a Year 2 internal medicine resident. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Daphne, who's going to take us through this session. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming on time, and thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. My name is Daphne Chibanda. Excuse me. Resident Year 2, and I made these slides with guidance from Dr. Nankavira. So we'll start by understanding what a journal club is. So a journal club is an educational meeting, and it is a regular educational meeting. It is attended by a group of people, usually a similar profession. And in this meeting, the individuals read and critically evaluate recent articles that's published in scientific literature. Scientific literature just means a body of research that communicates scientific knowledge and evidence. So when you hear a journal club, think of, let me say, a book club, where you meet to discuss a book, but in this case, we are discussing scientific literature or a medical research paper. So why is it important to attend a journal club? It provides an opportunity to learn about new research. We can get new research questions from journal clubs, different applications of journals. It also helps us learn to study designs, different methodologies, and how to interpret statistics. Journal club is important to familiarize ourselves with advanced literature, especially recent literature. We'll see as we go ahead that the articles we usually discuss in the journal club should have a degree of recency to them, because we want to familiarize ourselves with recent literature. And it also helps us improve our skills of understanding scientific literature, debating current topics, and also provides an opportunity for us to interact with our peers, but also faculty and seniors and epidemiologists. So when you have a journal club, there are people who are playing different roles in the journal club. And the first one is the moderator, who for our case is Sarah. This person keeps the discussions on track. She manages time. Don't be overwhelmed when she calls you out. She also has a responsibility to draw out some of the people who are a bit quiet in the club, just to encourage participation. And then there's the presenter, who is myself. And for the rest of the year, there'll be other Year 2 U.M.A residents. And the role of the presenter is to summarize the study and lead the critical appraise of the paper. So the participants is the rest of us. And our role is to read the article beforehand. The article is usually shared, so everyone is expected to read it beforehand, contribute as we are discussing, any questions, any concerns, any critiquing of what you read. And then the journal club lead, who maintains the overall quality and continuity of the sessions. And in this case, Dr. Nankavira and the head of department, Professor Mayer. So as we prepare for a journal club, there's some steps we follow to make sure we have a good presentation every Thursday. And the first one, excuse me, is selecting an article. And like I said, recent literature should be relevant to our practice, and preferably 1 to 2 years old, but not too old, except if it's maybe what is it called? Sorry, I'll remember the word, it has skipped me. And then the next step is to read. Like I said, all the members are supposed to read the article in full, not just the abstract, but read it so that on Thursday the discussion is comprehensive. And then the next step is to present. The presenter summarizes the article for us, the background, method, results, and then they also appraise and discuss the article. So our journal club focuses a lot on methodology. So whoever is presenting a journal club will be focusing on the methods that the study used. And at the end of the journal club, summarize, comment on the applicability of the article in our setting. So just a slide on how to choose the right article. So Dr. Sarah shared a list of the schedule of presenters. So this, as you're choosing an article, you're usually required to reach out to the faculty in charge, who will help guide what article to choose. And then, like I said, it should be clinically relevant, address a question we constantly encounter in our practice, and then should be published within the last 1 to 2 years. The word was landmark trials. So landmark trials are the exception. And a landmark trial is a clinical trial that is highly influential. It's changing practice. It changes the way we think about medicine, or it answers a previously unclear question in management. And then we make sure that the article is a manageable scope. We have 1 hour, so it should be an article we can critique within that 1 hour session. So when we are presenting the article, like I said, the presenter has to summarize the article for us. You can start with a title page, include for us the topic, the authors, the study design. You can add a comment on where you got the article from, what journal it was published in. Is it an open review? Is it an open access journal? Is it a peer-reviewed journal? Tell us the year of publication and maybe the issue it was published. And then we go to the introduction. So this IMRAD is just a structured way. It's a way that the abstract is supposed to be structured in an article. However, we can also adopt it for how we summarize our articles in the journal club. And so in the introduction, you're asking yourself or telling us what question is being asked by the paper. And before you get into the question the paper is asking, it's important to look out on some similar literature, compare with the literature in the paper, and then tell us what question is being asked in this article and why does it matter. Why does it matter? Meaning maybe what's the justification of this study? And then present the methods. How was the study designed? Was it a single-site study? Was it a multi-center study? And how were the participants selected? How was the data collected? So in your presentation, that should all come out. And then you summarize the results. And in the results, you tell us about the key findings that the study found. And you can project key illustrations from the paper, basically key findings. And then the discussion. In the discussion, you're required to summarize the results, interpret the results for the team. At this point, you can compare with other studies, results of other studies, and what were the limitations in the study and the conclusions. How do these conclusions compare with the results? You might find an article where the conclusion is different from what they're saying in the results. So it should be able to point that out for the rest of the team. Okay. So when you're selecting an article, it's usually guided by a study design. I will not go into the depth of study designs, but just briefly, there are 2 broad categories. It can be an experimental study where the researcher assigned an exposure, like randomized control trial, or it can be an observational study where the researcher was simply observing the exposure. So the observational studies include cohort, cross-sectional studies, case reports, case control studies. So these are all different studies that we are going to encounter in our journal club. However, there's a level of evidence. Which study has the strongest evidence? Which one has the weakest evidence? So this just shows that the systematic review and meta-analysis has the strongest evidence. It's not a study design, it's just a review of different studies that are similar. And so it has the strongest evidence followed by a randomized control trial or clinical trials. And then as we go down, we see that the case series and case reports have the weakest evidence. So we'll go into critiquing the journal. Critical appraisal is just a systematic process of evaluating the scientific evidence. So we assess the validity of the study, the importance of the study, how it's applicable in our setting. And like we did the presentation, when you're presenting the journal, as you're critiquing, as you're critiquing the study, it's important to be systematic. So you go how we went with the presentation. You critique the abstract, and in the abstract, like we said, a good abstract follows the IMRAD structure. So you point that out for the team if the IMRAD structure was followed. Is the abstract comprehensive in its structure? Is it giving us enough of the key points that when I read the abstract, I can decide if I want to actually read this article fully. And then you critique the introduction. In the introduction, we are looking out for meaning. Is it built in relevant literature? Is it comparable to other sources that we've seen? Is it correctly referenced? Are the references checking out? We might overlook that, but it's very important because you might find an article where the references, what they're referencing is not what it says. And then, so make sure you follow the citations and make sure they are with correct references. And then you critique the methods. So in the methods, the study design, you already presented the study design, but at this point you're telling us, was it the appropriate study design for the problem? The sample that was chosen, how was it chosen? Was it a representative of the population of interest? And then the calculated sample size, there's usually a calculated sample size. Was it achieved by the study? And the methods that were used, were they explained that if someone were reading the article, they know exactly what they did as they were conducting the study? And then we critique the discussion. The discussion, as you're critiquing it, you're pointing out if the discussion was meaningful and if the conclusion we draw is accurate given the methods and the discussion, and was it appropriately drawn from the results. So as you're critiquing, it's important to point out both the positives and the negatives, not just negative aspects of the study. So the positives, like for example, the importance of the question that was addressed, maybe it's a very relevant problem we are facing in our setting or in the medical world. And if the sample size was adequate, you point out that they did well with achieving the sample size. And then with the negatives, for example, you can point out the sources of bias in the study that maybe were not accounted for. And then it's very important that for the purposes of this journal club, we avoid basing on a checklist. So there are different tools that we use that have checklists, but however, like I said, this journal club is mainly to teach us about methodology. So it's important to give details and concentrate on the methods that were used, as opposed to just ticking a checklist and saying the study was well done without actually learning about the methods. And then at the tail end of your critiquing, you tell us how applicable it is to our setting, the similarities and differences in the setting, any comparable data or available data on the same topic in our setting, and if we can adopt whatever the study found into our setting. So these are the some of the critical appraisal tools. However, like I said, do not base on a checklist. Please critique the methodology. Put emphasis on critiquing the methodology. So the first one is the Critical Appraisal Skills Program. It is a set of 8 critical appraisal tools. So it has tools for randomized control trials, cohort studies, case control, systematic reviews. It also has tools for economic evaluations, qualitative studies, and it is the most widely used tool. The other one is the Joanna Briggs Institute tool. And this is also for systematic reviews, randomized controlled trials, and all those that I have listed there. And to note, the JBI checklist has, if you get it, you'll see it has options for ticking yes, no to a question. They'll ask a question. For example, the first question is the review question clearly and explicitly stated? So as you're reviewing that journal, you can choose yes, you can choose no, you can choose unclear or not applicable. So the different questions have options for you to select all that. And the other tool is Prisma, which is preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And it has a standardized checklist and a flow diagram, and it is used to improve transparency and quality of systematic reviews. So it's mainly applied for systematic reviews, and its goal is to ensure a comprehensive and clear reporting of the systematic review. Then the Cochrane risk of bias tool. This one helps to distinguish bias from random error. As we go on, we shall just talk a bit about bias and random errors. So it has 5 domains, and these domains cover the major sources of bias as you're appraising the article. And then after the 5 domains, then it does an overall risk of bias judgment. The final one is the strengthening the reporting of observational studies in epidemiology. And just like its name suggests, it's mainly for observational studies. So cohort studies, case control studies, cross-sectional studies. But again, please do not just get the checklist and tick. Please emphasis on the methodology. So as we are assessing methodology, it's important to assess study validity. And validity is how well a study measures what it claims to measure. If the study is saying this is what we are going to measure, how well have they measured that? So validity can be divided into construct validity and interface validity. And however, I just pointed out these 2 types of interface validity, which are internal validity and external validity. And as we are assessing, as we are critiquing journals, it's important to assess both internal and external validity. So the internal validity is the extent to which the results reflect the true relationship between the exposure and the outcome. So the internal validity, you also have to point out how the internal valid is the article internally valid, and some of the things that threaten internal validity are biases, which we'll see a bit on the next slide. So a bias is just a consistent error that pushes the results away from the truth. So it's important to point them out as we are critiquing the articles. And then apart from biases, bias is also called systematic error. Another type of error is a random error. And this
Hello? To our team.
We lost you, but I'm hoping that you're joining. Rejoining.
Just had a power outage, but Dr. Daphne is going to share her slides while we reconnect. Me too.
Okay, I hope everyone can see my slides now. The online team, could you confirm if you can see the slides?
Yes, we are able to see. Thanks. And welcome back.
Thank you. So as I was saying, apart from the systematic error, another type of error is a random error, which is an unpredictable error. And this occurs by chance. However, the internal validity is mainly threatened by the systematic error. And then the external validity is the extent to which the results of the study can be generalized to a different setting. So as you're critiquing the journal, we need to see you point out that the results of this study can be applied to our setting. Okay, so on the previous slide, when I said internal validity, I mentioned that it's mainly threatened by systematic error, which is also called bias. And these are some of the sources of biases in the different literature. So the first one is the selection bias. And this occurs when the population that is in the study is not representative of the general population. So the selection bias usually skews the data even before we begin data collection. The other one is performance bias, where there are differences in the care given to different groups. Let me say you have the control group and the intervention group, and then the differences in care given to these different groups causes bias in the results. And then the attrition bias, where participants may drop out of the study non-randomly. And the attrition bias is very exaggerated if the dropouts are different in the different groups that are enrolled in the study. And then the reporting bias that comes from reporting only the favorable results that the study found out instead of reporting everything. Then there's the confounding bias. And a confounder is a third variable. It's usually hidden. And this confounder influences both the exposure and the outcome, and it can create an exaggerated association in the exposure and outcome. And then there's a publication bias, where studies with positive results or striking results are more likely to be published than other studies that are considered to have less striking results. Okay, so after you've critiqued the article, the introduction, the methods, the results, and the discussion, at that point, you open up the discussion to the house for comments, usually the moderator at that point. So everyone is expected to have read. And so at that point, we'll ask for comments, concerns, any additions, any subtractions, or anything you took from the article you read. So this slide just shows the procedure we follow for this journal club. Like I said, Dr. Sarah sent out the schedule to the year twos. And so you select the article in collaboration with the faculty you're assigned to. And it's important to share this article early enough, both to the faculty and the epidemiologists, to give time for reading the article, but also helping you with your presentation. And then a copy of this article should also be sent to the rest of us in advance, because we said everyone needs to read the article. So maybe 3-4 days in advance, you share the article to everyone so that we all come when we're well read. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Daphne Chibanda, who through this incisive presentation just simplified my work as the coordinator. I'm sure many people had questions, and if you paid keen attention, most of them would be answered. But for the remaining questions, I'd like to invite the students to ask. I'll start with the year ones. If you have any questions, any comments, can direct this to our presenter. Any questions from the year ones?
So, yeah, thank you so much for the time that we discussed. I was just wondering if the authors did acknowledge some of the biases that is it worth mentioning when you're appraising the article?
Thank you very much, Dr. Joby. Any other questions from the year ones? I use my
Thank you, Daphne, for the presentation. Could you kindly elaborate on when you said that we shouldn't focus on a checklist while critiquing the methodology? Because the appraisal tools, you also presented a checklist, and I thought that a checklist would help you, would guide you while critiquing an article or a certain part of the article. So I thought that a checklist will help you, will guide you while critiquing a certain part of the article. So you focus on all areas that the checklist says. So when you say we shouldn't focus on the checklist, well, and so what exactly do you mean? Some elaboration.
Thank you very much. These are insightful questions from the year ones. Dr. Daphne, would you like to take these on? Okay. Year twos, Nelson is taking us on.
I don't want to ask a question. I want to respond in the context of the presentation. Dr. Daphne said, don't just focus on the checklist. Go beyond a yes or no as indicated on the checklist, because some things may appear as obvious as a no or yes, but there is so much in the details that we want to understand when you look at this paper. How much are you understanding the methodology of this paper? Is it fulfilling the scientific rigor that we want to have in the publications? And that may not simply just be answered by a mere yes or no on the checklist. For the good of our learning, we want to do much more than just taking a yes or no. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr.
And
Nelson.
maybe I'll help over there.
Was adequate for you, Dr. Sarah.
Hello?
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, my name is Tutu.
Hello?
I saw about 5 appraisal tools. I'm wondering if we are expected to use all of them while critiquing, or we choose for a specific design.
Thank you. So Dr. Daphne, would you like to take these on while the rest of the students come up with some questions?
I think Joanne wanted to say something.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I'll start with the first one. Is it worth mentioning the biases that the researcher upfront told us about in their limitations?
It seems they don't hear us.
It's important to point out to the team
people in the room.
These are the biases that the researcher anticipated or faced in the study. And so we know that, and if they tried to control for them, or if they did not. So yes, if they pointed out that some of the biases they faced, it's important to point it out also in your presentation. The second one, I think, has been answered by Nelson, and then Dr. Tutu was asking about the appraisal tools. So the 5 I've projected are not all the appraisal tools. Just continue. And not just the appraisal tools that are available. I just picked out 5. However, with guidance from the faculty, and when I presented the appraisal tools, I also put what study designs they appraise. It's important to also reach out to the faculty and the epidemiologists to further guide you on what appraisal tool you're going to use. Thank you.
Okay. So if there aren't any other questions from the students, are there any questions from the students? Okay, we'll just have one more and open it up to the faculty in-house and online. Dr. Nankabira will have a chance to speak after this last submission from the student. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah and Dr. Duffy. Jumba Moses here. I think mine is more of a comment about 2. One is that in the procedures we set out, probably will guide us the slides number and the font. It's very important as they come out so that we have this journal club very focused. We tend to use Calibri and about a max of 20, if not 18, so that you focus it. And then the other second comment is that there's usually a recommended preference on the article, the publication sites you're picking the article. New England Journal, Lancet, BMC, but sometimes there could be some other article published in Asia, China, or South America, very relevant. So it's not that you're closed in, or Africa. Yes, thank you, Professor. Or Africa, yes. I mean, it's all about the discussion with the faculty, and you sort of like, I know in our time would identify about 2 or 3, send them early, and then, you know, they guide that this is good for us to pick on and learn. Just that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jumba, for those wholesome points. We'd like to invite the faculty in-house, recognize the presence of Dr. Mtebi to give us additional insights.
Thank you very much. I think I welcome the first year. This is your first journal club. So I think the journal clubs, more importantly, are designed so that you're able to handle your research. You become very comfortable in doing research and looking at those papers, how to interpret them. So my suggestion would be that from my experience, because students come in and a third year is still having problems with variables. The third year is still having problems with either consent. The third year is still having issues with different components. So my suggestion would be that we could maybe add in a component that whoever is going to present, fine, they do the design. For example, you say you're going to do a case control, but every journal club, we could spare time and look at a component of the research. For example, we could say Sarah is going to discuss case control. So she gets an article, sends it out, but somewhere she also will be discussing study designs. So before she goes into the article itself, she takes us through the different designs, randomization, cohort, case control, whatever. Then next time it is Jumba who is going to discuss. Jumba is going to discuss cross-section, but in there he's going to discuss also variables. So before we start, you take us through the variables. What are the different types of variables? Continuous, discrete, how do you handle them? Because that component may be missing and we may be draining a lot into, yet it is the basic. You guys should be very comfortable. We shouldn't see a third year not comfortable with any component of the research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mtebi, for those very insightful points. At this point, we'd like to invite our faculty online for any remarks before we hear from our epidemiologist, Dr. Nankabira Juanita, who was very fundamental in preparing this presentation. The faculty online. Sure. If there are no comments from our faculty online, I'd like to invite our epidemiologist, Dr. Nankabira, to share her insights and let us know in anything that we had missed out in this discussion. Dr. Nankabira, you're welcome.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Daphne, for the presentation. Can you hear me? Can the team in the room hear me?
Yes, we can.
Because previously I was trying to speak and you couldn't. So today we decided to look at the what is a journal club. And we've gone through, Daphne went through the components very fast. Now, we are not saying only focus on the methodology. What we are saying is that for each journal club, and actually if we do it right, we'll be able to address what Dr. Mtebi is saying. So if you look at that article explicitly, think through what is the question, things that are important. What is the question? And where do we get the question? Look at the introduction. It's where we get the problem statement. We get I think you missed out some of the key components of the slides that I shared with you, but I know it was a short notice. So in each component of the article, there are important things. When it comes to the introduction, there are things you critique. Number one, have they given a general overview of whatever component they are looking at? It is important to see whether they've given the local context, and that local context, as we said, it would be good if the studies are nearer, that the articles that we select are nearer to us. In short, they inform us, as she gave in the introduction, they should be relevant to us. Okay, so is the study in a setting that is nearer or almost identical to what we have? And have they mentioned it there? Then is the problem statement included? What is the problem? This treatment has ABCD. However, there are newer things that they are trying to put on the market. The question is, are they applicable in this population? So that as you present, as you critique, you actually say problem. And this is what we are saying for the checklist. Don't just say, was the problem stated? Yes. No. That's why we are avoiding checklists. You tell us, yes, this is the problem as stated in the article. You remind people that there's a problem statement. Is there a justification? Don't say yes, no, that is a checklist. We want you to tell us in this article what is the justification for the study. I'm hoping the person who asked the question on what checklist and so on, because the checklist will just say yes, no, and you tick. That is not critically that is not critiquing or teaching us. That is when you're on your table, you can do the yes, no. But when you come, this is a learning platform. You tell us exactly the problem statement. Pick out those things that are supposed to critique. Okay? Problem statement, or is the problem stated? What is the justification? And what are the objectives? All those are in the introduction part of the article. Then you go to the methods. Remember, now you know the objective. Is it the right study design that was used? So we will have said it's a cross-sectional study. You've chosen an article on a cross-sectional study. Then you tell us a cross-sectional study looks at this versus the other. Exposure and outcome at the same point in time. The exposure in this article is this, and the outcome is this, and they were measured at this point. So based on this thing from the article, this summary from the article, it is the appropriate design. So you've already told us, reminded us what a case control is. You've also told us what is the exposure. You've told us what is the outcome. And the other important thing is measured in time. And then we know that we can even recap that for case control studies, we can get prevalence. So if they start talking about incidence, we already say it is a wrong design. You're critiquing, because a case control study cannot give us incidence. A cross-sectional study design cannot give us incidence. Only the perspectives do. That is the critiquing we want to see. Then you move on step by step. Daphne, you add those other components of the different sections of that we critique when you share those slides with the team. Otherwise, I think the rest is quite clear. Please, when you come to the journal club, don't spend the time summarizing for us the whole article. Everybody is supposed to read the article, and the article should be shared at least a week before. We actually put the actual date on Thursday, the Thursday before the time you will be presenting. So the next presenter should have shared the article by now. We said you reach out to your team at least 2 weeks before, so that you go through that process of these are the articles, possible articles. Okay, let's use this. And remember, you'll have time to engage the epidemiologists you're attached to, so that they don't help you pick the article, because we want relevant articles to your learning. So internal medicine, you'll have to pick the articles. We have the design as well as the subject, the internal medicine subject we want to cover, cardiology, ABCD. So you pick the article with the physician so that it is relevant to your learning. Beyond that, I think I don't have any other additions. I think David did a fairly good job. Beyond, she will add you the slides of what do you look at in each component of the of the manuscript? What do you look at in the introduction? What do you look at in the methods? What do you look at in the results? And what do you look at in the discussion? I think those are the components she missed out. Any questions for me? I'm hoping that you had me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nankabira. We had you and we really appreciate your input. Dr. Daphne has taken note and she's going to incorporate the changes. If there are any questions in the house directed towards Dr. Nankabira, I'd kindly request that you raise them now. Okay, we have one question. Dr. Fahim. Yes, Dr. Josephine.
Thank you, Dr. Nankabira, for your presentation. I'm not entirely sure that this question is directed towards you, but I would like to know how often meta-analysis are discussed in Journal Club, and if you have a different flow for that kind of discussion. From what you've discussed, Doctor, you spoke about objectives, maybe like test, having a case control design, having incidents and all that. It's more epidemiology centered. So is there a template for meta-analysis studies?
I think in there we have a systematic review. We don't have meta-analysis, but we have in a systematic review, and I think you have two of those. No meta-analysis because it may need us to do a little more, but the systematic review and the meta-analysis, the difference is that in one, you're just looking at the literature, while the other looks at the data in addition. The meta-analysis looks at the data in addition to from the studies in addition to the literature. But the components, I think the other components are covered in the systematic review. And we have actually a specialist in that study design as the epidemiologist for it. I'm sure in your timetable you have two of those.
Yes, Dr. Nankabira, we have 2 sessions on systematic reviews and we'll be working with Dr. Ekwaro Book on that. So Dr. Josephine, stay tuned. We have 2 sessions this semester and next semester we'll have more. If there aren't any other questions for Dr. Nankabira, I'd like to thank you once again, Dr. Juanita, for your time. And I'd like to hand over to the patron of our journal club and the head of department, Professor Meyer, to share his insights on today's discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Yeah, the comments. I think a couple of things, emphasizing the starting to think about the article value down. And if possible, there's a schedule, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to wait to start having the conversation with people. You can start having the process started. Because sometimes there's with your faculty, you're dealing with 2 or 3 faculty and you're trying to find an article. It might take a little bit of time. There might be some discussion back and forth about why this is preferred and not this one. So don't wait until 2 weeks. You have a schedule, start those conversations. And there are some ones that obviously have 5 years, and so might be a bit easy. Something that you come across. And then I think the other thing is remember there's usually a bit of a lag time between certain interventions in developed countries, and by the time we come here as well. So, fine, 1-2 years, it is the recency, but we might have to look at an article that's like 3 or 4 years, just because either those interventions are just starting here and sort of understand a little bit. The other key thing is there might be some interruptions in journal clubs. For instance, we have the Lancet Regional Journal Editor. I think he wants to have what? You said 30 minutes? Yes. 20-30 minutes. Is that next Thursday?
Yes, that is next Thursday. And while I share the article for next week's discussion, I'll also share the changing time that will be starting earlier than we usually do in order to accommodate that discussion.
Yeah. So, I mean, hearing from our journal editor, I think it's just a very Professor Chama. So sometimes there might be some problems. I've also just been thinking I think UNCST just revised their guidelines. I know they presented something at the end, and I was just wondering whether it might be useful to have them summarize in 20-25 minutes. Maybe that's something we'll think about. I know I think a couple of people might have the slides, but it might be good to just hear from UNCST. Because I think the regulatory aspects, some people may not understand how NDA works, how UNCST works. Because I think now you have to present, you have to submit to UNCST. Yeah, but so I think some of those things are part of the broader aspects of learning about yourself. And I agree, it is by the time a paper is published, there's been 3 or 4 years that have gone into that process, right? So I think also the other thing is we expect you to do GCP training as well, because it might help on some of the aspects. The things that you read about in terms of difficult statements and so on and so forth, you know, just reading about it in the paper, that's what it is. What's the background behind some of those things? Yeah, so there might be a bit of a mix here and there, introducing some people to just particularly maybe the regulatory, if they could get, I don't know, we could figure out 20 minutes this discussion. And then being on time. We need to be able to start on time. And lastly, all of you reading the article. That's why we're suggesting sending out the articles earlier now. Remember, you're not going to, it's not going to just read the article, the journal club article, you're reading the whole one. So the sooner that article is shared, the better the plan, make sure you. And sometimes reading articles is a fast pass, quick read through, and then you come back. If you try and internalize concepts, the first years particularly, I think they're going to be having a present second semester. Second semester. Yeah, but there's no harm being exposed to some of those things now. And then once you have the actual classes, they'll begin to make a bit of sense. So, okay.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mayor, and I'd like to thank you all for attending this session. Thank you, Dr. Daphne, for this very insightful presentation, and special thank you to our faculty that made the time to attend in person and online. Please endeavor to all sign the attendance sheet. This is what will suffice for today, but next week we promise to have the logbooks available, and if you do receive them during the course of the week, endeavor to come so that these are signed. As you can see, we are almost to capacity in our current venue, and conversations are being had on change of venue, but until then, we will have these in the boardroom, and any changes will be communicated in due course. So in the meantime, I'd like to wish you all a great week, and let's continue pursuing excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.